Alright. Okay.
And we went out. We went out for my deliveries, and then as soon as we got into his neighborhood, back into his neighborhood on the way back to his house, he said, I really don't feel well. And this is the first time then again, I haven't really done mushrooms with people because you're not supposed to do it with anyone. You're supposed to do it by yourself.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
This is my mom.
Hi, I'm Matt.
Hey
That's
Matt,
my stepdad,
nice to meet
Tom.
you.
Hello,
Hey,
Tom.
Tom.
I'm Matt.
Right on, man. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Well, probably a whole lot, but
I know what you mean.
But once we arrived back at his house, he told me, right before we actually got to his house, he said he wasn't feeling well. And then again, I haven't done these with a lot of people, or anybody for that matter, and so it was new to me that, I'm not feeling well. And I was like, alright. And I was like, you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. And as I parked the car in front of his house, I heard his feet rubbing up against the rubber of the floor mat. And I looked over and his leg was convulsing. And, I was like, you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And it was almost as if he didn't realize this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was slowly working up his body. So now his leg is no longer convulsing. His body, his torso is convulsing. And I kept shaking him, saying his name, like, are you okay? And he's answering me, of course, but he's also coming out. He's leaving. You know what I mean?
Make sure that front door's locked before when you
Okay.
have your evening, okay?
And dishes.
And dishes.
Sorry.
And he's leaving himself in a sense. And I kept shaking him, and then all of a sudden this convulsion is actually going to his neck now, because he is almost doing this dry heaving, but he's not dry heaving. He's not, he's just. It looks as though he was almost choking on something, but he wasn't making any in or out breaths. And I'm very sure his heart stopped. Yeah, I'm very sure of that. Twice,
Is
maybe.
that a side effect of these?
Hold on.
Okay.
Twice, I think, in the car. And actually probably more than twice, because each time that I'm saying that he left, he faded out and just, I feel like he possibly died a few times within that brief few seconds. And then finally, after this very scary, experience for the both of us, I'm still shaking. And he's like, oh, shit, you know what I mean? And, I'm sorry, right before this happened, he said, wow, I just realized a lot of shit. And I said, what did you realize? And that's when the convulsing started.
Oh, okay.
And then, once this happened, I got him out of the car, started walking him into the house, got into the basement, and as soon as we get into the basement, he lays down, and he says, what just happened? And immediately as he asked that, I just knew the answer. And what happened was his soul tried to leave the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
He realized that he is not real, and that he is using this meat suit as propulsion around this reality. And it was probably an incredibly overwhelming experience, and he definitely either had an out-of-body experience or he had a near-death experience.
Okay.
Or not even say near-death, because I feel like I'm very aware that he did die a few times, within that minute, if you will.
So could it have been like he was escaping, coming back, escaping, coming
Yes.
back? So that's death, what we like to call it in
Yes,
this.
it's a rebirth in a sense. And when we got into the basement, so it was just very odd, because you almost have like this goldfish memory, in the sense that he asked me for a cigarette, and then 30 seconds later when I handed him one, he said, oh, you've read my mind. But Justin,
You just asked.
you just asked me for this. Oh, really? This and that. But besides that, he kept saying he felt like a soul. He no longer felt physical.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept saying that he's going to sleep, and I was like, all right, that's fine. And then at that point, he kept saying, he's sleeping, or he's asleep, or he's going to sleep, and I feel like he was actually dreaming while awake. if you can understand that terminology. And since that, while being in the basement for that last maybe half hour after the experience, he definitely wasn't there, but he was.
Mhm.
But he wasn't in his body. He was
Okay.
using it though as, how do I want to say, facilitation to communicate between me
Okay.
and his soul.
Okay.
He was definitely not in his physical body. If anything, he was possibly floating above it.
Oh, okay. And you just sensed that, or did you
Yeah, I know that.
know that? Okay, and that didn't freak you out?
No, it freaked him out quite a bit.
It freaked him out?
It didn't freak me
And that
out.
has happened to you before?
No.
Or
Never happened to
No?
me, actually.
anyone else besides him that you
Like
did
I
it
said, I'd never done it
with people?
with people.
Okay.
I've done it with one other person, but it was a small dose that he did. So
Okay.
I think it was just like, to go back to me saying that Justin's quite oblivious. I think it was actually due to the fact that since he was so oblivious, and the things I was saying got to him on such a real level, because I was telling him he wasn't real beforehand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think he just got hit with this understanding
Mm-hmm.
that he, to go back to your analogy, he drowned in this idea. Not that he's a bad person, but he
Yeah.
drowned in this understanding and died.
Okay. And that was probably scary for someone.
Oh, of course. He didn't
And
speak.
when
He
they
didn't
come
speak to
back-
me for 2 weeks after.
For 2 weeks?
Yeah, for 2 weeks he did. Not that he didn't speak to me, but he didn't hang out with anybody. He concentrated on nothing but his work as a loan officer, which is kind of funny because he deprioritized, he organized, he prioritized what matters to him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's to to gain and not to be worried about going out every night and drinking with people you don't really care about or people who really aren't your friends, because he doesn't really. Oh, not that he doesn't have friends, but the people he chooses to hang out with really aren't there for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I'm his friend, but the people he chooses to go out and drink at the bar are more so possibly using him for a ride or things like that. It's just, and he definitely sensed that, felt that, experienced that, and then
So he disconnected with all of his friends?
Well, again, like I said, they weren't friends. They aren't friends.
So when he was more oblivious to things, he perceived them as friends?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
But it's also funny because, to go back to it, these things that you find out on these compounds, they're things that you almost already know, but you don't have the potential to understand them
Okay.
until you're on these compounds. Like, people say it's a conscious expanding drug.
Okay.
Don't want to use that word. Compound. But it's not conscious expanding, it's conscious realization.
Okay. Because it's there all the time.
It's there all the time.
And
It's been there above your fucking
gives
head
you,
your
the
entire
right
life.
Glasses,
Yes.
lenses, you put
Yes.
them on, and then you see it.
It has been there your entire life. It is the only thing true about you and everything that you're a part of. But you don't get it until you take them.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
It's very interesting. And that goes back to your question, do you need them to get to this level? Yes. And that's why. Like psilocybin, it's almost this, and also go back to ayahuasca, the reason I said it's very same, but it's also different, it's because the compounds, it's almost like putting your left hand over your right. It's slightly different, but it's
Okay.
exactly the same.
Okay.
And that is not ironic. That is meant to be. It's fate. In a sense that psilocybin or dimethyltryptamine, these tryptamines, they fit in your brain like the most comfortable glove.
Mm-hmm.
The most choreographed, created puzzle piece to finish what is up there.
Okay.
Like the fact that we use only 10% of our brain, which is probably a huge embellishment of what we really do use, is, well, no, I'm sorry, these compounds unlock the rest of the potential.
Okay. So, I was reading comments on this one video about LSD, and I know it's different, but I wanted to see what you had to say about it. And one of the comments was like, "LSD finds you when you're ready." Would you say that with any of these drugs?
No. Actually, I'm glad you asked that question because I love making this analogy for psilocybin. Because LSD, acid. Well, I don't like to put acid in the same category as entheogens like LSD, psilocybin, dimethyltryptamine. Because acid is a very big dissociator. It's a trickster. You do find things out, but you
Acid as an LSD.
no. Like for example, acid is a little bit different than LSD.
Oh, okay.
The yeah, the makeup of them is a bit different. You know, some would argue, but it is true. The compositions are a little bit different, depending on whatever the solvents are, the chemically boundness of the product that you're about to take. Like for example, on acid, I didn't really learn anything except for the fact that everything is infinite. And you know, that's a pretty significant thing to find, but it doesn't tell you everything. LSD, you do find out a whole lot, but it's not put into place very well. It's like somebody telling you that, okay, it's like you telling me you live in Long Beach Island, but you're not telling me an address, you're just telling me a town. So I have to find your house. But psilocybin, it's a given. It's something, it's like the lazy man's discovery.
So it's like you can't mess up what
Oh,
psilocybin's
no.
telling you.
This,
They tell you straight
you take a large dose and they're giving you the answers. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The psilocybin is the cheat sheet that wasn't given out in class.
Okay.
It's the girl that bends over and says "fuck me."
Okay.
You know what I mean? Not to get vulgar about it, but that's the best example I have for it. It's so